Good evening and welcome to the Board of Public Works and Safety meeting. My name is Dennis Buckley, Mayor of the City of Beech Grove. And at this time, we will conduct roll call, beginning on my far right.
Ed Bell.
Dan McMillan, Clerk Treasurer.
Craig Wiley, City Attorney.
Sandy Seward.
Thank you, board members. You have been presented a printed copy of the previous minutes dated Monday, November the 2nd. Floor is open for questions, comments, or corrections.
And I have none.
I have none.
No questions, comments, or corrections. I'll ask for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Make said motion.
And I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Thank you. Approval of claims. Board, you've been presented a 29 pages of corporate claims in the amount of $776,954.94. Floor is open for questions or comments.
I have several.
Okay.
Hold on. On page 7, and about almost halfway down, Karen Celestino Horseman,
That is,
for 6,600.
that is the Clerk Treasurer's attorney. It's a budgeted item.
Is it like the city's budget, comes out the city budget?
It comes out of the Clerk Treasurer's budget.
Okay. Thank you. And then, same page, Dan, almost all the way down, Peters Municipal.
That is our financial advisor
Okay,
for the tax anticipation warrant.
thank you. And, hold on. Page 26, please. Are we finished with lawn care yet? Do you know?
Brad, do you happen to know if we're finished with lawn care?
Okay. And still on page 26, Dan, the CNA surety.
That would be my bond, which the state of Indiana requires me to carry.
Thank you.
And the one right below it is the judges.
Same, okay,
Yeah, they require different dollar amounts.
okay. Both of you guys are covered?
I
Okay.
think mine's 300,000 and his is 30,000.
Okay, thank you. And page 27, next page. The Primo South, the $1,600 for the senior citizens, is that out of their budget?
It says senior donations. I'm not sure what this was for. Senior Center Christmas Dinner Buffet and Desserts.
Okay,
So
donations.
donations, what I'm
Okay.
assuming paid for that.
Thank you, and that's all my questions. Thanks, Dan.
Ed, any questions?
Nope.
No other questions or comments? I'll ask for a motion to approve the corporate claims dated November the 16th, 2015, in the amount of $776,954.94.
I'll make said motion.
And I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I also vote aye, and the motion carries. We have no unfinished business to carry over from the previous meeting. Under new business, 2016 health insurance. Kristen?
Thank you, Mayor Buckley. Before the meeting, I distributed copies of our material that we're going to go through this evening, and I apologize I did not list page numbers on it, as this comes from multiple spreadsheets and graphs and so forth. The first thing I'm going to discuss is the Medicare supplement that we offer to the retiree population that is over the age of 65. It's also available to their spouses. And you have a list of the folks that are on that plan with the Hartford currently. And you can see what the monthly billed rates are for both the medical and the PDP is prescription drug plan. Those are separate features of the plan, and give you a little bit of a history on this dating back several years. The city has always offered some sort of a Medicare supplement to those over the age of 65. And when I first started getting engaged in this, the prescription drug plans that are available in the market nowadays were not available to the senior population. So this was, in fact, the only way seniors could get the prescription drug coverage. Since that time, the prescription drug plan have become available to the general public, but our plan is still superior to what most people can get in the individual world. Our plan, what makes it so unique, also makes it costly, is that we do not recognize what's known as the coverage gap, which is for prescriptions over, I think it's like $29.60. In the individual world, that product would shut off until the member has paid out like $4,600 in prescription expenses, and then benefits kick it back up to the catastrophic level. We do not recognize that, so this is of value to quite a few insureds. The second page of that packet shows you what the renewal costs will be for both the prescription drug plan as well as the Medicare supplement. And it appears that the rates have gone up about 6.82% in total. And then this first graph, and I've got it in yellow up at the upper right-hand corner, showing that the city pays the same dollar amount as it has in 2014 and 2015. When we established this plan, the city was paying 50% of the premium, and then after the last two renewal cycles, we kept the city's dollar amount the same, and then the retirees picked up the additional cost. I've also got the percentage that the employees or retirees, I should say, are paying towards the cost of the coverage there, which is down around 43%. The next page actually shows a little higher amount, and basically what I'm proposing here is.
I'm going to go back to that,
Okay,
on the second page.
sure.
The third column over is total, down, is it increase of 6.82?
Correct.
What does that mean?
That means that the costs are increasing
For the retiree?
for the total.
Total.
The total bill.
Okay,
If you look to the far right, Mayor, that shows you what their respective increases would be
okay. For 16,
for 16.
okay. Okay, okay. Thank you.
The next page, I show where the city keeps the same percentages, 46% as it is today, and then, so that would represent a little bit of an increase to the city of about 5.88%, and that would be down in the column city pays. Under that approach, the retirees would experience about a 7.88% increase in their Medicare supplement plan, as opposed to 13% if we kept the dollar amount the same. Any questions on that?
And we currently have Hartford, right?
We currently have the Hartford.
Okay.
I might add that's a very interesting, it's a very interesting product. I don't have a lot of carriers that offer that. United American and Hartford were the only two carriers that I came up with. We came from United American, switched to Hartford. So that I struggle to find carriers that are willing to quote a group Medicare supplement.
So what would happen if Hartford told you that we're not going to do this anymore?
We'd scramble. we'd have to scramble. We'd probably have to contact United American and see what they would do.
Okay.
The next product design that's up for renewal is the dental insurance. And the first page with regard to the dental is a grid of the two plan designs that we have right now with Kansas City Life. And the city offers a low option and a high option. The low option is a lower cost alternative for individuals that are willing to use network dentists, and that's where the vast majority of our population is insured. And then we offer the high option for those that use a dentist that's not in the network and aren't willing to change. The dollar amount that the city pays per enrollee stays the same with each of these plan designs, and we base our contribution on the city paying 45% of the cost of the low option plan, with the employee picking up the difference on the high option side. And then you can see the current and as well as the renewal rates, which are up about 4.9%.
Okay. And the retirees, they don't have this option.
Retirees do not have the dental option, that is correct.
Just full-time employees and the clerk, mayor, and judge. They don't,
Yes, that's correct.
okay.
I listed as anyone that's a full-time employee of the city.
Okay. Okay.
The next page shows a list of carriers that I sought quotes from on the dental side. And kind of to short circuit that, to the far right, there was one carrier that came in as competitive as your renewal with Kansas City Life, and that was Sun Life. In my mind, I didn't really see a need to recommend a change with regard to dental for like premium. The next two pages show a breakdown of the cost, both for current as well as the renewal rates, broken it down for the employee only, employee and spouse, employee and child and family. So when you see EE, that stands for employee only, ES is employee and spouse, EC is employee and child and family, or FAM would be family. And then I have it listed for the participants in each of the plan designs for the high and the low. Any questions on the dental? We can go into we'll go right into the medical, and on the first page of the medical at the top, it says administration fees. That gets you to the right page. Now, just to let everyone know, I went to another third-party administrator. They provided quotes for 6 alternative carriers that I looked at, and I did not find one as attractive as the renewal offer with the current company. Unified, who is our TPA, they also went to 5 different stop-loss vendors, so 11 different stop-loss vendors have taken a look at the city's business. Of the 5 they sought quotes from, 3 were not shown. They were identified by Unified as not being competitive. 1 declined to offer a quote, not sure of the details of that. And then 1 one offered us a quote, but they wanted to do what's called a laser on one individual. And basically what that means is the city is on additional exposure for that one particular individual. Although that is a negative, it wasn't the end of the story for that particular stop-loss carrier. I still took a look at it to figure out, does it fit? And it didn't. So we're sticking with, as far as I'm concerned, my recommendation would be the city stay with HM. Having said that, I do have 3 alternative stop-loss structures with HM for us to take a look at. And I think I can weed out one of those right out of the gate. But to start off with this administration fee page, it shows you the elements of the first part of being self-funded, which are called the administration costs. And included in that would be the amount that Unified Group Services charges to be our third-party administrator. And included in that is basically Unified acts as the insurance company. They pay and process claims. They have representatives that answer the phones when people call with questions about how claims were processed. And they also go out and find our stop loss. They do our COBRA administration on the health plan side. And that's included in their stuff. The care engine is another component of being self-funded, and this is realistically, it's designed to help find interactions that shouldn't be going on. Somebody goes to a doctor prescribes the medication for one condition, but that person may suffer another condition and be taking a medication for something else. Unified's care engine will pick up that particular interaction and send out what's called a care notification that goes directly to the doctor, and depending on the severity dictates what happens. If it's a severe issue, some physician from the care engine contacts the prescribing physician and says, hey, this can't happen. And it's not necessarily something where somebody else isn't doing their job. It's just that sometimes those kind of things happen. So the care engine we pay for. Network access fees, this is what we pay to Cigna to be our network of choice for city employees. Envision is our pharmacy benefit manager. And then the Affordable Care Act taxes are part of our administration costs. Follow that across, you get a total per enrollee of administration costs as well as a total for the group. When you look at the current and renewal, the only thing that's changing is that the transitional reinsurance fee for 2016 does go down a little bit. The PCORI fee goes up slightly, not a huge sum there. And then as far as the remainder of the administration fees, those remain the same. So in summary, our administration fees are going down from what they were this past year. Any questions on admin? So if you flip the page, it says HM current at the top in the blue graph or blue bar there. And then below that in the green bar, it says 65,000 specific deductible and 65,000 aggregating specific deductible. These are the terms of our stop loss arrangement as it stands currently with HM. And what those two numbers mean is that the city is on the hook for the first $65,000 of claims on any one insured in the city. Okay? The aggregating specific component of that means that for all individuals that exceed 65,000, we got to fill up another bucket, and that's the aggregating specific. And so that aggregating specific is 65 with the current plan. So in theory, the city's not going to get reimbursed from the stop loss plan until 130,000 has been paid in claims. Now that aggregating specific only has to be filled up one time. And it doesn't matter if it comes from one insured or a multitude of insureds. I also put the expected claims that that HM suggested we would have at this time last year when we established the renewal, and then also what the maximum claims would be. So the maximum claims is the most of the under $65,000 claims that we would have to pay out. That goes to yet another bucket, and once that bucket reaches the $787,000, then we would get reimbursed for that, and that's called the aggregate stop-loss coverage. I would point out that in 2014, we did hit that for the first time since 2009. So it does happen, but very rarely. So on this sheet, I break it down with the two particular plans of benefit that the city currently has. We offer a HSA plan and a traditional plan. I might add that any of the discussion that we're talking about this evening, we aren't discussing a benefit change for the health plan that the city employees have or for those that have the HSA and HSA contribution. When Dan and I began this process, that was never part of the marching orders, so we aren't discussing that at this point. The admin fees from the previous page are brought over, and then you have the specific deductible stop-loss premium, and then the aggregate stop-loss premium, and then combine the admin fees and the stop-loss premiums, and that gets you the total fixed cost per enrollee. So for an example, $217.18 is the cost, fixed cost for an employee only. And then you can see what the group totals are there. Then we have the column labeled billed. This is how much we bill to the city each month. This number here is essentially a number that I create that will allow us to pay our fixed costs associated with the plan and generate enough cash flow to meet the claims of the city employees. So far, we've done pretty good with that. So once we deduct out the fixed costs, the remainder goes into a trust for city claims experience. And then you can see what the group total is. And then I also put what the total bill is, so we get a sense for that. If you go down at the bottom, it shows for claims with the current structure, $612,668. That's how much would be going into the trust throughout the year, assuming that enrollment stayed the same for the entire year. And then the combined annual maximum right in the middle for the fixed cost is $330,191. Any questions on that? Now, if I could, I'm going to have you skip all the way to the back page because I have a summary there. It might be easier for us. The remaining 6 pages show the renewal, the 3 different options shown 2 different ways. And I've got them all summarized here, so it might be easier for us to look through that. Certainly feel free to look through the previous documentation at your desire. So under the renewal column, I've taken a look at a $65,000 specific, $65,000 aggregating specific, so we keep our stop-loss terms the same. Then I've also taken a look at a $65,000 specific, so $65,000 on each individual. Then I increased that aggregating specific from the current $65,000 up to $85,000. And then I took a look at another option, which is to increase your specific deductible by up to $75,000, so $10,000 increase per person, and retaining the $65,000 aggregating specific. So just a couple of different options. And then the options to the right of that are the same stop-loss plans, but we'll just talk about those here in a second. So as you look at the amount that's billed all the way across there under the renewal column, it stays at the same amount, the $942,000. But our fixed costs will change because those different stop-loss terms have different stop-loss premiums associated with them. And then the remainder from the billed amounts is what would be available to pay the claims for the city employees. And if I could, when we talk about the $65,000 specific with the $65,000 aggregating specific, we're increasing our risk by an additional $20,000 for a premium savings of $15,572. And with that particular deductible increase, you'd like to see a dollar-for-dollar trade-off. In fact, when we've bumped that in the past, it's always been a dollar-for-dollar trade-off, or pretty darn close to it. I think last year we might have been off by $10 or something like that. So since we're picking up 20,000 of additional risk, only saving 15,000 in premium, it's almost like I'm hesitant to make that choice. If we go to the $75,000 specific, we save $30,730 on each insured. Another thing that happens with that is we increase our maximum claims, which is down in row E. We increase our claims by 16,000. So the fear I have is if we have 3 people or more that hit that, well, 3 people would be about a break even. If we have a 4th person, we're out of, we essentially lose. And so that's the fear I worry. And then in row H, I've got the shortfall there. And please understand that that's shown on the maximum claims liability. And as I mentioned previously, the city's hit the maximum claims liability once since 2009. And so hopefully we don't run into that situation. But in addition to that, the city has in the trust as of the end of October, $380,000 that we could tap into if necessary. Any questions on those structures?
Okay, what happens if we leave it alone, the 65,000 for the spec and the 65 for the ASD? What does that do to people who are on the insurance?
We haven't talked about that yet. We can make it work as far as how much we bill the employees. We can make it work there.
Okay.
In fact, if you look at the shortfall from the current year to the shortfall in the renewal under the 65-65, we're actually improving with a straight renewal. And that's happening because the stop-loss insurance, HM, they actually lowered our maximum claims liability from what it was the previous year.
Okay.
Okay, so the right-hand side of that shows where we increase those build rates. Remember, we make the build rates up. And what we're doing there is we're increasing the build rates from the current level by 5%. Now, what you will of course see there is that the build amount increases by 5%. The fixed cost remains the same, but the amount available for claims increases by about 47,000. So basically, what's happening is we've got more money going into our trust. We have the same fixed costs coming out, so we leave $47,000 more in the trust. And one of the reasons why we shared this with you last year, and one of the reasons that we did this is because it's more appealing to me to raise it steady 5% every year and try to build that trust up as much as possible, and then help mitigate against a year where we come in and have to raise somebody's cost 20%. And another way that we could look at it is if claims hold steady and we have $47,000 more in the trust than if we had kept the funding rates at the same, we could absorb a $47,000 increase in next year's stop loss premium and not have to charge the employees anymore.
Christian, will you explain to them what happened last year as soon as we approved this, what happened in November and December?
Yep.
Where our trust was in November and where it ended in January? And I know what the numbers are, ballpark, if you need to know.
Last year, after we had this meeting, the city incurred a very atypical November and December. We had about $300 and some thousand of paid claims that went out, which essentially meant we started the year with $60,000 in our trust, which was, we were operating at a level that Dan and I, we were a little bit nervous. Fortunately, since then, our trust has come back in value, and we attribute that, of course, to a low claims year. But those are the types of situations that we're trying to mitigate against.
But isn't November, December, isn't most people have electric stuff done then because they've met their deductible?
Well, I don't know if you, I'm not going to weigh in and say.
That's common.
Yeah.
That's not a surprise.
To me, it was a surprise. Now, do you see an uptick in your claims in November and December? Most likely, yes. But I would say, Dan, what do you remember the percentage? I think it was a third of our claims were incurred in those 2 months.
Right. We went from 400 and some thousand in the trust down to 60,000, and we still are only at 380. So it's taken us this whole year to even get close to where we were at last year.
Yeah, let me see if I can grab the report, because I can go through by month and tell you what the paid claims were. So I'm just going to go back to August was 84,000 in paid claims, 39 for September, 25 for October, 91,000 for December. So that's not too off the norm. And then December was 216,000. So it was close to half our claims were incurred in those 2 months. Just looking back, yes, the December is usually higher than most other months. So at the bottom of that particular page, under each of the respective columns there, I've got labeled what the employee-only cost would be, employee and spouse, employee and child and family. That's it under the current funding if we kept the rates the same versus if we increase it by 5%. So those with the HSA and employee only, their cost would increase about $53 a year, with an employee and family increase in about $285 a year. Also have some historical data. City employees paid the same in 2014 and 2015 as what I have listed there under the current funded rates. Looks like in 2013, the rates were slightly less. A family was paying $215.40 a pay period for the HSA plan. And that 2013 rate structure dates back to the 2010 plan year. An employee only in the 2010 plan year was paying $31.87. As I mentioned, Mayor, that as far as the, if you kept the stop loss the same, I think the city would be okay.
All right.
Any other questions or concerns?
I want to hear from, Janetti called me, said he couldn't come tonight because he's sick. Jamie, you sit on the committee? Your take on this? Okay.
I actually see it from both ways. I understand wanting to increase it in small increments over several years instead of just one big one, because that would really hurt the employee. But I have to be an advocate for my employees. And it doesn't sound like much, 5%, but if one of our officers was on the family plan and we increased it by 5%, 25% of the raise that they got for next year is going to go towards insurance. So a quarter of his increase is going to be used to pay for insurance. And I think that's quite a lot. But like I said before, I can see it both ways. I could see paying just a little bit each year to safeguard us from that big, huge hit. But I don't know if it's fair to ask someone to pay 25% of his increase in his salary to go towards his insurance. So,
Brad or Chief, do you have any thoughts on it?
Dave Irwin sits on that committee too.
Talked to Jamie, and it's a hardship for the increase, but I think insurance goes up.
Dave, the clerk says you were on the committee as well.
Yes,
You have, come on up, tell us what you think.
Well, I've heard both sides of it, and I've sat on insurance committees before with the UAW, and insurance does go up. And my thinking of looking at it, of course, now I'm not an employee of the city, so this isn't gonna come out of my pocket, but just observing what I've seen and listened to Kristen and Dan and looking at the numbers, I would think that a 5% increase would be a lot better than 2 years down the road, a 20% increase. Because you say you get a 25% increase next year.
well, the city employees got a 2% raise, and I can only speak for the police department. So our raise was approximately $1,100. Well, if a officer's on the family plan, their insurance is going to increase to $285, or an additional $285, which is 25% of.
Yes, I understand. Well, I mean, you know, it's just kind of you know, damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's, how soon would you think that maybe like a 20% bust would come?
Well, that's what we don't know, and a lot of that has to do with what goes on claims-wise with city employees. You know, if we found ourselves in a situation where there was a significant claim with regard to cancer or heart issue or something like that that's gonna linger on for a long period of time, then I would be more inclined to say that that's gonna have impacts both on the stop-loss premium as well as the maximum claims liability. Fortunately, we have not been in that issue beyond maybe more than one person, but even those were like one-and-done type expenditures. They weren't anything that just lingered and lingered and lingered on.
Any change in the HSA contribution to the employee?
I have not proposed any kind of change to the HSA contribution or the plan of benefits that the city employees have.
And the deductible stays, whatever the
Same.
deductible is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
That's another bonus that we can have, is that from a benefits perspective, we really haven't changed the benefits too much since like the 2008 plan year.
Board, do you have any questions for any of them?
No.
Your thoughts? Ed, Sandy?
I wish we could get a little bit more feedback from other employees. I think that would be a,
Well, we had a slight increase in 2013. We didn't increase it in 14 or 15.
We did not.
We did
Did
not.
not.
And the employees didn't get raises in 12 or 13. We gave them raises in 14 and 15. So. Well, my recommendation to this board would be well, I'll tell you what I'll do. Kristen, what's your recommendation as our consultant?
Well, I've started trying to think beyond this year, and my thought pattern has been, if we put the money in the trust, it's in the trust for the employees. The city doesn't have to force any kind of a awkward situation, whether it be cut retirees from the plan, change the benefits. We can absorb a lot of stop-loss increases, take on more claims exposure with more money in the trust. I like the concept of that. I like the concept that I think that it's gonna help mitigate. We don't know what the future's gonna hold, and I definitely think that we're putting the city in a better financial situation when it comes to the health insurance with the increase, but I also get the employee side of it, and nobody likes increases in their cost. And I quote individual health insurance for folks that don't have employer-based coverage, and I'm quoting $1,700 a month for health insurance for a family of 4. So I see multiple sides of it. If the city passes on it this year, I would suggest that we definitely do it next year if we're not forced to, based on whatever the stop-loss terms are in 2017.
We had the same presentation last year, and we decided not to do it.
Right.
So this year, we probably ought to do it. So that's going to be, how should the recommendations be stated?
Well, we have multiple choices here. The first is increasing the build rates by 5%. And then our second decision is with regard to what stop-loss terms do we want to go with. Those are separate and apart from one another.
Okay, what was the first one? The,
The 65,000 specific, 65,000 aggregating specific,
okay, to remain at that?
yes.
Okay, that would be a recommendation? Okay, so I would recommend that we keep the SPEC at 65,000 and the ASD at 65,000. Need a motion to approve.
Make said motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Now, the second recommendation would be, we're keeping Hartford and Kansas City, and all that stays the same.
Right.
Okay, so the second motion would be to increase the funding?
To increase the funding rates by 5%.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion to increase the funding by 5%.
I'll make said motion, Mayor.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Is there anything else, Kristen, that we should
Well,
consider?
the only thing that I want to make sure that we're clear on, and although we talked about a 5% this year, we don't know what the future's going to hold. But I say this time next year, we assess the situation again to figure out, okay, where are we with our trust balance? Where is the stop loss renewal coming in? And maybe we pass on it next year. I don't know. But I think we need to give it some more credibility each and every year.
Well, this is only the second raise in 6 years, am I correct? And
That
it's-
sounds about right, yes.
okay. And by us keeping this 65 and 65, if we would have a terrible claims year, that gives us a little bit of an opportunity to go back to these people and go with a higher, like the 75 or 85, which can hold our rates down too. So
Right.
I think that was a good move to keep that at 65 for that particular reason. Christian, my question to you would be, do we need a motion on the dental and the Hartford separately from the health insurance?
I think I'm gonna defer to Craig on that one.
Okay.
Is it in the same group?
Yeah, it's the same company. Both of them will be the same companies, they're just raising
I'm gonna do motion.
Okay, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah.
And I think we do need a motion definitely on the Hartford, because I did show two alternatives with regard to the cost share.
We'll do a motion to approve Hartford for retiree insurance for 2016.
I'll make said motion.
And I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I also vote aye, and the motion carries. Ask for a motion to approve the dental insurance, Kansas City Life, both the low and high option as dental insurance for employees of the city of Beech Grove.
I'll make said motion.
And I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And then the, ask for a motion to, what would be the motion for health insurance for employees? Would it be, what would that motion be?
We've actually
We've already done it?
Yeah, that's already.
Okay,
I was gonna say, I thought
All
we
right.
already did
Yeah.
that.
all right. So that concludes that. Okay. Before we move on, I don't think there's anybody sitting up here that wanted to raise rates for employees. We'd much rather have the city eat it, but I think we've responded well over the past 3 years. And we continue to offer insurance, which I guess is a blessing in itself, especially to retired folks. So, we've increased the pension base and employee salaries over the past 2 years, so we hope to continue to do that. We've done it again for next year as well. So that's a pattern that continues, so health insurance is not an easy thing, and it's quite expensive. So I applaud the board for their actions in the committee and who's ever involved in the process, because it's convoluted and it's hard to understand at times. So, Kristen, thank you. All right, that concludes new business. We have one item that's not on the agenda. Brad, did we need to approve a claim for paving, or?
Real quick, I'll just kind of go through.
Okay.
We wrapped up, obviously, the paving on Bellefontaine is over, but some of the billing is trickling in here at the end of the year. When you guys approved the contract, the engineer's estimate originally was $301,500. The lowest bid with Midwest Paving came back at $270,000. In the contract, we built in a 10% contingency, which gave us the ability to spend up to $297,000. We did go over by $25,000 over the initial $270,000. Some of that was by choice, things that we added in. Some of it was not by our choice, just based on the condition of the road once we peeled off the top layer. So just to give you a quick breakdown, when we sat down at the pre-con, two things we added them, or asked them to do that we wanted added into the scope of work. One, we had a big spot on Cashard that had failed. I was getting calls consistently from business owners out there, so we patched that. That was about $7,500, which was really a good deal because it put the road back into working order, and they were all very happy. And then we connected a line that was dumping water out onto Bellefontaine at Second, which was really quickly deteriorating the road. We hooked that into our storm system to get that water underneath the surface, and that was $1,200. So ultimately, we spent about $9,000 there. And then out on Bellefontaine, as the work began, there were some undercuts that we had to do because of bad subgrade, additional patching. There was a little bit of an HMA, that's the surface layer, that went over more than we thought. Overall, between Bellefontaine and the parking lot work at Seniors and the community center, that went over $17,000 for a total of $25,000. We knew this road was bad, very comparable to Alton, which was done back in 2011, not done quite right, and you can see it's already failing in a lot of spots, really showing up now 4 years later. This will not be the case with this road. I mean, this should last quite a long time. So a good thing is we did it right. Unfortunately, it's never cheap to do it right, but we still came in $6,000 less than the engineer's initial estimate. So overall, we came in under what we anticipated when we first talked about it. And then one thing that United did that I did appreciate was they did come in $10,000 less on the initial inspection engineer cost, just to help us out, because they did realize that we were absorbing more costs in the base repair. So that was nice that they were able to do that. So I just wanted to go through it with you. I think one bill's getting paid tonight, and then we have one more that will trickle in for maybe $7,000 or $8,000, and then it'll be paid for.
I thank you, Brad, for this, because this is more clarification for the public, because the board has already approved that. But when they see a 270 and it comes in at 295, they think that, somebody lowballed the thing to
Right.
get the bid, and that's not the case at all.
Right.
And so we're just trying to make it as transparent as possible.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of times when you get a really good initial estimate from a company like Midwest, we always have things on the back burner, and sometimes we like to sit down initially with them and say, hey, can we weave this in? Because this is something, if we had to pay for them to come out and do Cashard, an isolated repair, it would have been 2 to 3 times that cost. But because we, included it, it's a great deal for us. So sometimes that price goes up a little, but to our benefit. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
All right, I don't think there's any motion we need, is there?
No, it was just informative.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks,
All right,
Brad.
thank you.
All right, that concludes new business. Comments from board members?
Looks like it's heavy leaf season right now for Brad and his guys. You drive by everywhere and you see the pile of leaves, so thank you for that. How's that new equipment?
Oh, it's great.
Is it good?
Yep, it's great.
Good.
All right, no other comments. I will advise the board that we need to meet next Monday, November the 23rd at 6 p.m. in these chambers for a special meeting to hear a couple complaints, or one appeal and one complaint. So we will convene next Monday, November 23rd, 6 PM. I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make said motion.
And I'll second.
The meeting is adjourned at 6:59 PM. Thank you.